I have a couple of questions for you. So, like for the first one will be, can you briefly distinguish the difference between social and social media from the marketing point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that social, when we talk about social, it's broader, right? So I think that social describes the context now, right? Of it's you can do business in a social way, you can do marketing in a social way. So when we talk about social media, it's a little bit more specific. It's a little bit more of applying that social. I like to describe it as almost like a layer, right? So social is a layer that can affect customer service. It can affect marketing. It can affect, more holistically how you do business. So social media, I think, is a little bit more specific in looking at the media landscape, looking at communications with the social mindset.
How well are companies worldwide adapting the social instead of social media? How often they mix those two things? I mean, are they still doing it or?
I think they mix it all the time. I think most companies have seen, or organizations, many have seen the immediate sort of return through social media first. They've realized that, especially the ones that started early, that they could build a sizable following across social channels. They know that consumers are there. They know that social is one of the ways to get to them through this device, right? Because of the social feeds, the news feeds. So I think a lot of companies have begun to adopt it that way. I think also reputations of companies, from a crisis perspective, the way that, the speed at which things can become an issue have pushed some companies there. I think less companies have been able to leverage social as more of a how they collaborate internally, but also the ones that do, you don't hear about that much. So I think, the idea of social business is still yet to be realized fully.
Okay. What are the greatest challenges in the digital marketing at the moment? I mean, from the agency perspective, because you come from an agency, and from brand perspective too, if you can talk about it.
No, absolutely. And I think it's a part of the theme of my talk, and I think it's a good setup for your next question. I think right now both brands and agencies are really struggling with content. It's not as simple as it used to be. It's not. Well, we have the content that we want to put out there. You have user-generated content. You have content that you can co-create with people. You have content that is editorial nature versus content that is more sort of traditional advertising. And then there's the question of, well, how do you manage it all? You have everything that gets pushed out on the social channels, in 20 different places, and then you have global. So I think the idea of how do you look at content holistically and develop the system around it is becoming a challenge now. I would say the early days of social was more about engagement, and now it's more about, you can be the company or brand that's advanced and has figured out the engagement part, and now they're trying to figure out how to scale and leverage content.
How does the agencies now, how do the agencies react on that? How do they adopt or, in this whole new movement, so to say?
I think some, have always been really great storytellers, and they've evolved how they tell stories now to make sure that it doesn't just work in television, that it is something that people want to share, right? So the storytelling agencies have done well. I think that agencies that have really tapped social media as a way to service brands have begun to pivot from just community management that allows you to, engage to putting out content that's high quality, that gets people talking and sharing, so telling stories in a different way. So I think a lot of agencies are still trying to figure out the ones that were natural storytellers had an advantage in one area, and the ones that started to deliver social as part of the services had an early advantage, but they are pivoting. We're in the process of doing this now with both creative and strategy. So they're actually now adding muscle in areas that they didn't have it as much in the past.
That brings us to the next question. Do you still work on brand campaigns or client campaigns, or you just focus on the overall strategy and communication maybe?
Both. The way that I operate is I definitely look at the strategy overall, but I've always, just given my background, I've always wanted to be, helping to see an initiative through, to actually getting produced. So that doesn't mean maybe, hands-on in the production process, but I stay involved until it actually goes out there. I think that, executing initiatives is the best way to learn and the best way to improve. And I don't even feel comfortable getting up on a stage unless I'm actively participating and producing, helping to really be involved in the work.
The last one, content marketing, real-time marketing, responsive marketing. How do you arrange them? Which one is bigger? Which one comes after another? Or is everything the same?
Well, I think real time is a subset. I think that content marketing is. I would say this. I would say that real time marketing is a tactic.
Okay.
Content marketing gets into sort of the bigger area. I've been using the term responsive marketing, really to try to bring it up a level, and ultimately to become a responsive brand. So, a content engine is a part of it, but then being responsive, the two words that I use are responsive and resilient. Being able to, respond appropriately, anticipate what's going to happen next, be prepared for it, and content being part of the engine, but then also being resilient, being a brand that once you put the infrastructure in place, you can withstand the test of time, you can withstand, you're ready for when things go wrong. So I'm trying to sort of leverage that as a broader way of looking at it. And I think it's going to take us years.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks.
Have a nice presentation.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay,
perfect.
good,
Come on. Don't worry.
I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, really?
Not since South by Southwest.
Okay, and that was like 6 months
Yeah,
ago.
6 months ago.
It's nothing.
Yeah. Thank you.
No.